Because we know people who should be successful, but what? They're not successful. Why?
So that's his why buy. But what is he afraid of?
My personal style of education, but still entertain them, bring them along with stories, right?
Who do we want to learn from? People who are what? Killing it. If you're a real man, what do? I'm not the only one.
You can't wait to tell your spouse. You can't wait to tell your colleague. You can't wait to go to work and tell somebody. And you're like, oh my God, I can't wait. So what happened?
If you haven't seen my TV show, you should get cable. That's what you need to do.
From doing a TV show to doing corporate events, I've been so lucky to connect with many passionate entrepreneurs worldwide.
What I've learned from a business perspective.
Because this is the formula for success, no matter who you talk to. Attitude will drive your behavior. Would you agree? And your behavior will drive your consequences every single time.
We got the concept. Okay, we got the concept. We got the equipment, right? We got the brand. You guys got that. And then again, we got the content that we create. That's the easy part. This is the big one, the big C, which is the commitment.
What should you do? That's right. All right. 10Xers. Do not fail me. True test. Here it comes.
There's skill, and then there's will. Listen to what I'm saying. There is skill, and then there is will. And here's the interesting thing. I know a lot of people who have a lot of skill, but have no what? Will, right? You ever look at somebody who's successful, and you say, why them, why not you? Yes, okay, that's me too.
You have more control, but your costs are also going to be what? Higher.
Now, here's where some of the magic is starting to kick in.
You can talk to any CEO in the B2B business, any CEO. You walk into his office and they only care about three things. People too. Yeah, he with the suit, put it up. There you go. I hope you can see this. I'll try to draw big. Let's pretend for a moment that I had 7 territories. You remember I wrote that out? Yes or no? Boom. Territory 2, territory 3, all the way to territory number what? 7. So now I've segmented my market.
So content is going to start being created by machines. And I'm telling you right now that those people, you guys, the content creators that connect with people are the ones that are going to win. Some people think, well, it won't work for my industry. Really? It'll work for any industry. Trust me. The majority of the time when we're looking to fix something, repair something, or learn something, where do we go? YouTube. We don't even want to read anymore. We go to YouTube. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong.
When you're doing your thing, beautiful things begin to happen. It's like the law of attraction kicks in. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're in line with the universe. Everything works. And when you do your thing, everybody gets an automatic MBA, which stands for what? Mega Bank Account Money. Are you with me? So we don't want to do a thing. We want to do a what? Beautiful.
All right, put it all together for Victor Antonio. Here we go.
All right, there we go. I'm not here to mess around. You ready to learn? Yes or no?
That's how it works in today's market. Whether it's B2B or B2C, you see the similar pattern. How do you just, in other words, say you gotta start doing these things, pushing them, but also encouraging them. Oh, look at this. This is where it gets, dude, this is like so interactive with audiences, man. Can you imagine this with your customers? Check this out. Now, what does all this have to do with selling? It has everything to do with selling.
All right. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Sales After Dark. I'm only laughing because on my side, you can see people give you thumbs up, and I already got a thumbs down, and I haven't even started the presentation yet. There's always haters in the world, right? I'm like, how can you give me a thumbs down? I haven't started yet. So anyway, welcome to another episode of Sales After Dark. Thank you for joining me. I know it's Easter. Again, let me know where you're from. I see Chris, my man, Stone here from the ATL. That intro was done by Chris. I talk about him all the time, probably ad nauseum. If you're looking for a great guy to do great video editing for you, just like that intro, Chris over at Cast Ahead is your man. Julian, what's happening? Haxhulka. I think I got that right. Let me know. But anyways, I'm going to make this a quick one. I know it's for some of us here in the U.S., or for all of us here in the U.S., it's Easter Sunday. And so the fact that you're even on here is impressive enough. Let's get into this. Let me go ahead and set this up. I want to start this thing called the Contractor Series. When I talk about contractors, I'm talking about people who do roofing, plumbing, HVAC, home cleaning, anything that has to do with residential and maybe even sometimes commercial. But if you're offering those type of services, this is the place to be. And so I want to start doing videos for that segment. And again, I put them down under contractors. And because I don't usually pay attention to them, and I was like, well, why don't you ever do stuff on contracting? Okay, I'm doing it. If you're in the pool industry, there's another one. Pool industry for me is actually a very big industry, a business partner for me. So I do work with pool companies. Just did Hayward Pool Distribution and Partners this year, so that was kind of cool. Anyway, let's get into the content. I'm going to be brief. If you've never been to Sales After Dark, here's how it works. I'm going to deliver about maybe 10, 15 minutes of content. After that, if you have any questions, we'll take those on. Let's get into it. Here's one of the biggest questions. When I talk to contractors or work with contractors on their sales training, one of the things we always talk about is the intake piece. In other words, when people call in. Now, when people call in, depending on the type of business you have to make certain decisions on whether to do, go do pricing over the phone or actually go there, do an inspection, and again, invest time doing that. And so the question we're going to answer today is, when should you give pricing over the phone, and when should you just do do an in-home recommendation or inspection rather, an assessment? Like, how do you decide that? And because we got to talk about cost, right? For example, and again, these are numbers I just threw together. Don't hold me to them. But let's say you have a cleaning service, and again, you have wage with overhead. By wage with overhead, I mean basically you're paying somebody, $30 an hour, and then with overhead, insurance, health insurance, things of that nature, it's probably $40 an hour. Now, to get to the home, they have to drive 30 minutes, right? Now they're at the home, let's say 30 minutes, and then they have to drive back to the location, the home office, it's 30 minutes. So that's an hour and a half, and at that rate, that's going to be $60 per inspection. You might be thinking, well, that's not a big deal. But I always remind people of something called an opportunity cost. And that is, when I spend an hour and a half doing this over here, I've just missed out on an hour and a half doing something else over here. That's called an opportunity cost. So maybe $60 is worth it. Could be. But what if the numbers start getting bigger? Like, for example, now you're looking at, okay, now maybe it's $40 an hour again, but this time you got 2.5 hours invested. Now it's $220 per inspection in this case. Like, do you do it or do you not do it? Well, I think this begins with the intake, like the folks calling in. Who are they, and how do we qualify them? That's an interesting question, because if you think about it, how do you qualify when somebody calls in? If I asked you that question today, how do you qualify this is a person you should just get pricing over the phone, or it's worth driving over there and doing the actual in-home visit? Now, let's state certain things up front. Typically, when I talk to contractors, people who, especially in residential areas, in the residential vertical, they'll say, Victor, if I can get in that front door, my close rate is 60, 70, sometimes 80% close rate. So it's always worth going to the location. For example, if you sell pools, if you go and actually do a site inspection of the pool, begin to talk to the customer, your chances of closing that deal go up. So most of the time, we just always want to go do a site inspection because, again, the close rate goes up. Over the phone, the close rate might be somewhere in the 20 or 30 range. See the difference? But what if you're in a business where you can't afford, you don't have enough people to send out to do all these inspections or assessments? What do you do? That's the problem we're going to solve today. If you don't have the bandwidth, the resources, the financial resources to hire more people to go into the field and do these inspections or assessments, what do you do? Glad you tuned in. So, I worked with two different companies over the last month. One is an assisted living company, and then one is a home cleaning business, right? And one of the things I put together for them was a scorecard. Now, today, if you have the technology, AI can do this for you. But if you don't have the technology, which a lot of contractors do not, you might want to consider creating a scorecard so when somebody calls in, let's walk through the process. I want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Let's say somebody calls in, right? We call that the top of the funnel. Somebody calls in, and the lead can come in from anywhere. It can be, I don't know, maybe you did some search engine marketing. That's where you pay-per-click, you paid. Or maybe they came in through social media, whatever it is. They came in and they made a call on their phone, right? So they called you, and this is what I'm calling the intake. As soon as you take that phone call, that's the intake. The question is, how can we make that person more effective when it comes to handling that call so we can qualify if this is a person that's worth going to visit, or, you know what, let me just give them pricing over the phone. So I created this intake scorecard, and the first one's for a cleaning service, and I'll do one for, again, an assisted living business. You know, one of the questions you can ask yourself if you're doing the intake is ask the client the question, you know, have you ever worked with a cleaning company, not a person? And then you could kind of score that. On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you score that? So for example, if they worked with a company before, I would give them a 5. If they worked with a person before, an individual, not a company, I'd give them a 3. If they've never worked with one, I'd probably assign them a 1, right? High being best, right? Now you're saying, well, how does that kind of make sense? Well, think about it. If they worked with a company before, they're used to the type of services you offer, and they're more likely to buy again because they're familiar with the service. But sometimes people work with an individual and not a company, and they're used to paying a lower rate, which is why this one doesn't get a high score if it's just a person. And if they've never worked with you, that means maybe they don't really understand the cost structure. So again, these are just scores you would give. So let's say the person understood, they've worked with companies before, I'd give them a 5, right? Perfect. Next one. You know, how frequently are you looking to clean? Is it never daily in this case, but it could be bi-weekly or monthly? And again, I'm thinking that again, if they want weekly, that means more frequency, more often. I would definitely give them a big 5 on that one. If they want bi-weekly, that's still a pretty good deal. But if they only want one-time cleaning, that's not the type of business I want. In other words, I want recurring revenue, right? So I would give them, and let's say, maybe they want bi-weekly, we'll give them a 4. I love that, okay? The next question we can ask them is, this is kind of where you have to use your intuition. What about price sensitivity, right? So in other words, when people call in, I like to give ranges, right? I don't want to surprise people. I like to give them a range. And so when you give the person a range, what's their sensitivity? What's their reaction? And based on their reaction, this is kind of where you have to use your intuition here. When you mention pricing to them, was there there was no price pushback, which means prices, for example, you'll say, it'll be between $150 to $200 per cleaning. They go, okay, that's no pushback. That's a thumbs up. If they say, okay, but what does that include? So now they're trying to see if the value is there. And if they say, wow, that's expensive, never expected to pay that much, I would give them a low score. So assuming that, let's say, okay, what does that include? Okay, I'm gonna give that a 3 right there, right? So give them a 3. And again, these are questions you're gonna ask on the intake. On this one, let me move my big head over here. When are you looking to start? Now, obviously, if somebody says, as soon as possible, right? That's a definite 5, right? If they say, well, I don't know, the next couple of weeks, I'd give them a 3. If they said, we haven't decided yet, that should be not don't decide, it should be haven't decided yet, right? And I would give them a 1. So they're still thinking about it. So let's say within, 3 weeks. So I would give them a 3. So to this point, I guess we have 10, we have a 15 score so far, right? Again, let's keep going. Erase the numbers here. So we got a 15, so I don't forget right there. Then maybe, because it's a cleaning business, do they have pets? Well, if they have dogs or cats, that's a 5, which means they're going to need extra cleaning. 3, they kind of go, maybe they won't need cleaning. So let's assume they have some pets. Well, again, that's a 5, right? Now, if they, for example, have a small house versus a big house, this is an important question because you want to find out, is it greater than 3,500 square feet? That's a 5, because that's a lot of cleaning, right? 1,000, 3,500, that's a 3. If it's less than 1,000, it's not so important. But let's say it's a big house, right? So in other words, that would be a 5 as well. And so all of a sudden, zip code, it matters also, right? Are they living in a ritzy neighborhood, right? You know what I mean by ritzy neighborhood, right? All right, cool. If they're living in a ritzy neighborhood, then again, depending on where they're living, if it's a high-end neighborhood, medium or low, you would score them. And let's say it's a 3. It's somewhere in the middle, right? And then the last one is, do they have kids? If they have kids, there's usually a lot of cleaning. So again, I would score that appropriately. If they have more than 3 kids, that's going to be a lot of cleaning. If they only have 2 children, that could be somewhat cleaning. 1 child, you get the idea. And let's say they have 2 children, so that's a 3. So now we have a what? That's 10, that's 16. I'm looking at this and I'm going, 1, I think I can do math, that's 31. Now here's, and just kind of keep that in your head. So that would be a 31, right? I would score that as a 31. And by the way, I should add this one. The last one is this one right here. There's something you can't quantify, but it's something that you can use, your gut instinct. And that is where you would say, you can tell if somebody's really serious about, the service that you're offering. If they're serious, give them a 5. Considering, I don't know, maybe tire kickers like, I don't know, we're just looking around. That's a 1. Let's say they're a 5. That would bring up my score to 36. Okay, keep that in mind, 36. And so now that's for, let's say, a cleaning business. Let's look at another example. Let's say you're into pest control, right? Or I'm sorry, in this case, assisted living. So this is interesting. I was doing some training with a company last couple of months, and they do assisted living. In other words, family members call up and says, either somebody had an accident or somebody elderly has had some issues, some cognitive issues. And so they call them and say, hey, we're looking to kind of maybe have somebody come over and take care of our parents or take care of an individual, whatever the case may be. And so again, we talked about the intake process as well. And again, you can apply the scoreboard method here as well, the scorecard rather. So again, have they ever worked with an assisted living provider? If they worked with a company, great. If they worked with a person, an individual, again, it's not a company, which means they're probably going to be cheaper, so they're expecting cheaper pricing, or they never worked with somebody. So in this case, again, you can assign, let's say in this case, 3, right? They worked with a person, but they've never worked with a company. The next question would be, how frequently do you want it? Daily, in this case, weekly, or bi-weekly? And let's say it's a daily thing, right? They really need some help. That's a 5. And then, again, price sensitivity gauge for that. And let's say, it's a 3. Okay, what does that include? And then, when are you looking to start? Again, if it's as soon as possible, which you hear a lot in this business, right there, you're looking at a score of 16 already. And so let me erase that. And again, just kind of change the questions a little bit. Again, level of incapacitation. In other words, how bad is it? How bad are they? How bad is the individual? Because that'll tell you. So if the level is high, obviously it's going to be a 5. And then, again, if it's low, it's going to be a 3. And then mobility issues. Can they move around? Can they not move around? Again, how would you score that? Yes, again, mobility issue might be a big one. None could be a 3. You score that. Cleaning, you get the idea. Will the person who's actually going there, the caretaker, will they have to do cleaning? Will they have to do laundry? Score that as well. If it's a lot of laundry, a lot of cleaning, a lot of maintenance, you get the idea it's a higher score. If it's not going to be a lot, then it's a lower score. And obviously, if it's a high score, there's more urgency. Does there have to be food preparation? So forth and so on. And then last but not least, again, you got to use your gut instinct. How would you rank that? Now, as you use this, again, think about your intake person, the person that's making receiving the calls every day. Like what I've seen a lot of people use, a lot of companies use, is just a sheet of paper with a bunch of boxes to check off, right? And it almost sounds like an interrogation, right, as you're going through it. That's okay if you just want to collect information, but I'm talking about scoring the individual when they're calling in. And if we can score the individual, and if they score above a certain score, in this case, by the way, the possible score was 45. There were 9 questions, 9 things you wanted to find out. The highest score was 5. 9 times 5 is 45. And the way you would make a decision, and a very simple way of doing this is say, look, if it's less than 25, just price them over the phone. Remember, the problem we're trying to solve here is, do we go do an in-house assessment or inspection, or do we not? Or if it's more than 25, then you definitely want to push for in-home inspection. Now, this is important because what happens is a lot of folks are, in this case, here, let me go back to the presentation, sorry about that. What happens is a lot of people don't know what to do. Somebody calls in and we're trying to judge and sometimes we have new people on the phone and we're trying to judge, should we give them the pricing over the phone or should we just try to push for an in-home assessment? By creating a scorecard, this simple method of creating a scorecard allows you to not only keep track of who's calling in, but where they fit. Now, this is data, by the way. You know, if you haven't figured this out, it may be manual as far as filling it in, but if there's a way to capture this data and move it into your CRM, if you have one, that's even better because, again, that's data you can track. So this is just a simple, I guess, method, technique to score your actual intake buyers. And by the way, what's also interesting is that if you're getting people and they're scoring low, that might tell you that your marketing is a little off. In other words, for example, if you're getting a lot of people who are calling who don't have the knowledge, who are not familiar with your service, who are not familiar with pricing, that means either your website is not informative enough, or maybe your, let's say your pay-per-click advertisement isn't really giving them the right information or pushing them over to a page where they can get more information before they call you in. So it's a way of screening people. So again, it's a very simple method. And let me know what you use for intake in terms of how do you qualify buyers when they call in? What questions do you ask? Last point. This is a good strategy, especially if you're trying to scale your business and you're trying to bring on new people. When you bring on new people, this is something that's so easy to train on the intake, in terms of qualifying people, that you can almost do this immediately. It takes about a couple hours to train somebody on this. These are the questions you need to ask for. These are the answers we're looking for. These are the type of scores you give them, and this will help you. Now, think about this. Intake call comes in. Now I want to transfer that call to, let's say, a consultant, right? I'm just intake. I want to transfer it over to consultant. I can tell the consultant, I said, look, this person scored high, over 25. Here's what they're looking for. Here's where they scored high. Here's what they want. So when that consultant gets on the actual call with the actual buyer, potential buyer, the prospect, they'll have that information available. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch. One, you can use it for qualifying people when they call in, but you can also use it as a cheat sheet to hand over to the consultant when you trade off or send over the call to that consultant. So again, 1-2 punch, simple, and again, interesting way of scoring it. And I think that is it for this series. Like I said, I'll be doing more for contractors. I've been getting a lot of questions on how do you qualify people. This is one way of doing it. Down the road, we'll talk about a couple more. Anyway, on that note, if you have any questions, I'll take them. Got a couple here. Patrick, let me put Patrick's question up there. Patrick said, thanks a lot. You taught me a great way to use scorecards and select clients more efficiently. Merci beaucoup. Right? So thank you, Patrick. If that works for you, how would you use it? Out of curiosity, if you could put it in the chat, that'd be great. This maybe is more on the marketing side, other than the sales qualifying the leads coming in. How to filter or reach more or better prospects, which is what I just mentioned, right? Eliminate some of the giga, garbage in. Giga's garbage in, garbage out. What is giga? Garbage in, garbage out. You meant gigo, I think. Considering the opportunity cost. Let me know if that's what you meant, Julia. Other than that, I don't eliminate some of the giga. Let me know if there's a different language I don't know about. But if I assume that's giga, it's like it's funny because it really depends on what you're marketing. How are you marketing? You're absolutely right. In other words, when somebody finds your ad, clicks on it, does it take them to a web page? Does it allow them to download information? More importantly, on your web form, for example, when they request more information, like, are you asking them to fill in certain things? Like, for example, where are you located? How often are you looking for the service? So forth and so on. When do you need it? These are 3 simple questions you can actually put into a web form to qualify the actual buyer. So I like that. All right, no more questions. If that's all that's happening, I kept it to 18 minutes. Good enough. Hope you enjoyed this. We will see you next time. And as always, this is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, check out the Sales Velocity Academy if you haven't already. And on that note, remember, selling ain't hard when you qualify and you know how. Take care. See ya.